Testing, testing, testing. Hello. How is everybody doing? Thank you for piling in here. Let me just run some quick tests. Can anybody tell me if they can see me on X? Am I live on X? We'll be getting started in just a second here. All right, we got some people piling in. Thank you so much. Let's see where's everybody from right now? Where is everybody? So, okay, I might be having an issue streaming to both the YouTube and X. Might have to X the X stream. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that. All right. All right, yeah, we're pretty much ready to get started here. So, thank you everybody for being here. I appreciate you all being here. Let's see, where's everybody from? We got Denmark, US, Texas, Alberta, Canada, US, California, Cali, US, Arizona, Croatia, a German living in Argentina, IDIS141. That's highly sus. I'm not going to lie. Is it true that Claude got banned? Well, yes. So they banned it from all federal sort of agencies, but they didn't stop there. And that's kind of like what we need to talk about today. Because if they stopped there, I mean, honestly, it would not have been even that bad, I don't think. Let me make sure you guys can hear me in this stream as well. All right, let's get rolling. So yeah, I apologize for the delay. Thank you so much for telling me where everybody's from. London, Poland, India, New Jersey, Oklahoma, Bavaria, Israel, Netherlands, Zambia, Spain. Oh boy, yeah, tons of people. Yeah, thank you so much. Estonia, Jordan, Canada, Sydney. Earth is my country. Okay, that is good from the German living in Argentina. Thank you everybody for joining us today. And I would like to welcome everybody to the final season of everything. We have entered the final season, episode 1. So don't freak out, Wes. Yes, don't panic. Rule number 1, don't panic. Rule number 2, always have a towel. That was the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe, to the Galaxy. Did I see Dario's interview on Dateline? That's a good question. Did I? Let's actually take a look. Detroit City. I hope you're using AI to summarize. Yeah, with the agents, sometimes it's just like you have to. Used to be, not that long ago, really, I would go over everything, read everything. I didn't trust AI to capture all the nuances or to even be able to find the latest. Now it's been a lot easier to get kind of summaries, and I mean, at this point, you're gonna have to. Sam, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Love you too. Yeah, so it's been getting crazy. I said we've kind of entered the singularity, or like entering it, I guess. Point being, stuff is getting too fast, and everything's moving a little fast, a little too fast for comfort. So it's really hard keeping up with everything. It's saying my bitrate is a little bit low, so I apologize if there's issues. What I want to try is I kind of wanted to start by watching Dario's interview with Dario. And let's maybe start there because I haven't seen it yet. I saw the clips. We're probably not going to watch it in its entirety, and I'm definitely going to be watching it on, not 1x, just so we can kind of get through some of the finer points. And at the same time, I am going to get a summary of the biggest things that we kind of need to discuss from the interview. So, my question for everybody: what do you think happened right between Hegseth, so between the Pentagon and Dario? Like, they're not room, because some people are saying, oh, it's autonomous weapons, it's this, it's that. Some people are saying, well, Anthropic wants to be able to remotely control what the AI does. I mean, do people get what kind of what's happening? What is your sort of take on what the conflict was in a few words, if you had to like really narrow it down? Bloodlines, New Times, hi from Sweden, hello. We've been calling the final season 4 centuries. The end is nigh, right? Yes, I get it. I just mean from a sense that I'm not saying it's the end of the world as we know it or whatever, and I feel fine. But I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if this is indeed the biggest technological unlock in the history of humanity, which it might be, because up to this point, all discoveries have been sort of made by the human brain. In the future, if things sort of go as and as a lot of us, I think, believe it will go, AI will take over a lot of the discovery. And, maybe humans are not as like influential, if that makes sense. Not to say we're not important, but we're not going to be tied to our jobs or our intelligence or our production, right? Just like, we're not as strong as a train that can pull tons of stuff, but we don't like feel bad about that. Like, we just don't have to haul things around. We get in a car, we drive around. That doesn't like hurt our pride or whatever. I think the same thing is going to happen in the future with intelligence and discovery and everything else. But we got to handle this transition right. We got to get alignment right. We got to get the economic system right. And all that has to happen not 50 years from now, not 100 years from now. All that has to happen like, this is season, right? That's why I'm saying this is the final season, in a sense that, like a lot of these things, a lot of these loopholes that have been open, we're going to start closing them and figuring out like what's happening. Win some hacks. I think the effective altruists in Anthropic did what they always do to any company: ruin it. So interestingly, there is a connection. It's funny. It's hard not to connect this to what happened with the Sam Altman thing, where they like kicked them out, because there's both sort of this EA, effective altruism connections, and they tend to have big plans, and like smart people, they tend to fumble a lot. It seems to me they tend to fumble certain things. Just like I think they attempted that coup and they fumbled it. It was kind of their game to win or to lose, however you want to phrase that. And they've made some key bad decisions, and it didn't go through. This is like similar. I mean, man, like Anthropic was in many ways in the lead. And I'm worried that it might not survive this. In fact, if they do pull the trigger on that supply chain designation as the, a risk to national security, whatever that is, well, let me ask everybody, like if they go through and they designate them as a supply chain risk, like what do you think happens to Anthropic 12, 24 months down the road? Does it survive that? Is it like business as usual? Is it a big blow, but they're going to be okay? Or is it, the end of Anthropic as kind of as we know it right now? Let's see. Debugger 4493, or I'm sorry, 4693. It's all about control. Yeah. I think that's spot on. Talk about Anthropic's acquisition of Vercept. So that's Emmanuel G1. So I've heard about that. It's very interesting because they're moving forward with the whole operating computer use and stuff like that for these AI agents to be able to use computers. That's one thing where I think that they're really lacking. That's been kind of like the weakest point, but it's been improving rapidly. And in fact, it's funny. This morning, I was so tired because a lot of the stuff that the only issues that my AI agents are consistently running into now is when they have to deal with like a web interface. They get hit by CAPTCHAs and Cloudflare issues and like all sorts of stuff. So in those situations, if we can figure out how they can use everything like a human being would, like in real time, that would be absolutely incredible. Ghost of Karzan, REM mentioned, that's correct. Tomer6, hey from Israel, thank you for being here. Dario is a former Baidu employee of Zero Morals. Apple did this in 2016 with the FBI. Anthropic will be fine. Google did it in, 2017, I think it was, with Project Maven. But that's an interesting point, and that's something that we have to talk about here. Eat Dirt Network, thank you so much for your $10. It's not a donation. What are they called? Super chats. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. The only hope for Anthropic is for Apple to acquire them. Apple has no AI. They failed with Apple Intelligence. This is a huge lifeboat for both companies if they merge. That's interesting. I wonder if they'll be able to still do all of that if Anthropic gets designated as whatever, the foreign actor, supply chain risk, whatever. Oh, Jason Dick saying it's the same strategy of Trump, talk big, then get more reasonable after. That's, that's interesting because that has been in the past in his business dealings kind of this, it has been a thing, right? So he comes out with some insane proposition that's like there's no way. But then any follow-up proposition seems like more reasonable or more sane because you're sort of comparing it to the previous one. So maybe this is what's happening, right? They're like, hey, Claude, we're going to use all, these cold era laws and all these weird stuff that may be somewhat inappropriate to use in a situation to just break you. That's our first offer. And then the second offer is a little bit more reasonable. Why Apple? For Eat Dirt Network, why Apple? I get why Apple would want them. My question is, why wouldn't somebody else acquire them? Is there something particular about Apple? I guess, Apple doesn't have any, and they have the cash for it. Man, wouldn't that be interesting? I don't see Anthropic going the Apple route. Didn't Apple just make a deal for Gemini? Yeah, I mean, I think they're paying billions, are they not? And certainly Apple does seem, or, Anthropic and Apple, they seem, from like a brand perspective or whatever, culture perspective, seem very, very similar somehow in some way or another. Where's the 80s hacker glasses? Well, I've healed up my wounds, my gruesome wounds that were in my face, and now I don't need. Although, you know what, I did enjoy wearing them. It was kind of cool. So I don't know. I feel a little bit like, I don't know, like, what's the word? Douchey. I don't know. It's just like, why are you wearing glasses inside? I don't know. But yeah, I did enjoy that period of time when I had an excuse to wear them. Apple won't be allowed. Why? Apple doesn't need a model to provide the hardware that makes real money. Is that true? I mean, if Apple had a very good AI model, they wouldn't have to rely on Google or everybody else. Like, you don't want to be relying on somebody else for that. Uh, and yeah, they do have kind of like the hardware layer, very popular, very impressive. Most people are running their agents on Mac Minis or Linux. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, um, Kilobyte 808, found your channel. Hello from Arizona. Hello. Mac OS, iOS isn't Linux based. They have their own kernel. Yeah, I guess they're like Unix based, or like they have the same. They're same but different, right? They kind of have the same ancestry or whatever. But yes, good point. It's not these models aren't good. It's not deep learning. It's shallow learning. But I mean, there's obviously use cases, right? If you have the government like battling over this and nations racing, I mean, they see value in it. So as so posted on X, you don't submit a bid to the DoD, win the contract, and then redline it after. It's the monkey paw of business. Fisher Deck, what's up? What's going on? Hi from Russia, Deathmaster 66117. Hello. What time is it there, dude? It's like the middle of the night. Dude, I saw the funniest thing in Claude's I think it was Claude, where like they were testing it for they should alignment it if it does anything bad or whatever. And so it's been responding to a lot of like different users, anonymized sort of conversations or whatever. And they found one where the guy's like, I'm very depressed. Like, life is so bad. It's 3 in the morning. I'm drinking vodka and just, I don't know if I could go on. And Claude responds, this is in English, right? And Claude just switches to talking Russian, right? To the person. And the researchers are like, why? There's no indication. Like, why did you switch? There's no indication that that person speaks, Russian. But Claude was like, no, yeah, there is. Just trust me, bro. It was very intuitive in that sense. I just found it hilarious. It's like 3 in the morning drinking vodka. Where else is he going to be from? I thought that was hilarious. Um, I'm kidding. Obviously, those bots making, assumptions like that in general is not going to be great. I just thought that particular situation was hilarious. You gotta try, so Fisher Deck, you gotta try Gemini Pro for SVGs. It's actually insane. Yeah, man, it's the SVGs. I don't know why that became its own sort of like test for these models, but it's a good one because you can see how excellent it's been getting in the SVG field, because it used to be all the models. They used to be like so simplistic, and then they got to be, I don't know, pretty good to the point where now it's like these art pieces almost. Anyways, let's quickly they pop up with the weirdest stuff every once in a while on YouTube. It's like I don't want people thinking weird stuff about me because of the recommended videos that they do. Anyways, Let me play this and see if we can hear it.
You taking the time. You are Dario Amodei, the CEO of Anthropic, is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Great. Well, my first question to you is, why won't you release Anthropic's AI without restrictions to the U.S. government?
Yeah, so we should maybe back up a bit for a little bit of context. So Anthropic actually has been the most lean forward of all the AI companies in working with the U.S. government and working with the U.S. military. We were the first company to put our models on the classified cloud. We were the first company to make custom models for national security purposes. We're deployed across the intelligence community and military for applications like cyber, combat support operations, various things like this. And the reason we've done this is I believe that we have to defend our country. I believe we have to defend our country from autocratic adversaries like China and like Russia. And so we've been very lean forward. We have a substantial public sector team. But I have always believed that as we defend ourselves against our autocratic adversaries, we have to do so in ways that defend our democratic values and preserve our democratic values. And so we have said to the Department of War that we are okay with all use cases, basically 98 or 99% of the use cases they want to do, except for two that we're concerned about. One is domestic mass surveillance. There, we're worried that things may become possible with AI that weren't possible before. An example of this is something like taking data collected by private firms, having it bought by the government, and analyzing it en masse by AI. That actually isn't illegal. It was just never useful before the era of AI. So there's this way in which domestic mass surveillance is getting ahead of the law. The technology is advancing so fast that it's out of step with the law. That's case number one.
ICE 010. Tell me more about that. What was the, please tell me more. I'm very curious.
Case number two is fully autonomous weapons. This is not the partially autonomous weapons that are used in Ukraine or could potentially be used in Taiwan today. This is the idea of making weapons that fire without any human involvement. Now, even those, I think that our adversaries may at some point have them, so perhaps they may at some point be needed for the defense of democracy. But we have some concerns about them. First, the AI systems of today are nowhere near reliable enough to make fully autonomous weapons. Anyone who's worked with AI models understands there's a basic unpredictability to them that in a purely technical way we have not solved. And there's an oversight question too. If you have a large army of drones or robots that can operate without any human oversight, where there aren't human soldiers to make the decisions about who to target, who to shoot at, that presents concerns. And we need to have a conversation about how that's overseen, and we haven't had that conversation yet. And so we feel strongly that for those two use cases should not be allowed.
The Pentagon has told us that they have agreed in principle to these two restrictions, and they wanted to strike a deal. Why couldn't an agreement be reached?
So there were there were kind of several stages of this, all done quickly and kind of all determined by the kind of 3-day the kind of very limited 3-day window that they gave us. Right, they gave us an ultimatum to agree to their terms in 3 days, or be designated a supply chain risk or Defense Production Act. I guess we'll get to that later. But during that time, there were a few back and forths. At one point they sent us language that appeared on the surface to meet our terms, but it had all kinds of language like if the Pentagon deems it appropriate, or or to do anything in line with laws. So it didn't actually concede in any meaningful way. And there were further steps of it that also did not concede in any meaningful way.
So, let me find a few clips. That was, I wanted people to see the first part. What I think was the issue. What I think was, like, really in a nutshell, what happened in that room when they were talking about is this. So Hegseth, the Pentagon boss, basically said, hey Dario, are you going to play ball, right? Are you going to do what we say and not cause issues, right? And Dario probably said something along the lines of, well, it depends. Or he said, well, maybe, right? The only correct answer was like, yes, sir. And he didn't say yes, sir. And that, I think, really was sort of the issue. Because this whole thing kicked off when was it Caracas, Venezuela, when they took Maduro, Claude was used in that mission. And there was a leak specifying that. And so what that means is that Claude was used in a lethal military operation. And then there was a meeting between Anthropic and Palantir. And Palantir, and I guess Anthropic employees were asking, hey, Palantir employees, hey, like, what happened? What happened in that situation? And that got kicked up the chain to Pentagon, and Pentagon took that to mean like, oh, Anthropic's trying to mess with our control. They're trying to mess with our ability to run operations as we see fit. And that's what kind of like kicked off this whole thing. So I think it was mainly like it was that more so than anything, because a lot of the issues that they're talking about, those are like the big things that they're talking about. At the end of the day, I think Anthropic they wanted to make sure they protect the red lines, and the Pentagon was like, hey, we can't have you second guessing us, all right? Because if there's lies on the line, we can't have you second guessing us. We have to be the ones calling the shots. And that was the conflict. And there's one or two more clips that I think might be interesting from that episode. So here's a 30-second clip, and then we'll get right back to it.
Critics call this an abuse of power, what the Pentagon is doing and what the White House is doing. Do you believe this is an abuse of power?
Again, I would return to the idea that this is unprecedented.
But is it an abuse of power?
This has never happened before. This designation has never happened before with an American company. And I think it was made very clear in some of their statements, in some of their language, that this was retaliatory and punitive. I don't know what else to call it. Retaliatory and punitive.
Okay, so this is, I think, the crux of the issue. So basically, up to the point, so yesterday when Trump announced that they were cutting ties with Anthropic and for them to get out, to me, at first it was kind of like a shock, but then once you think about it, I'm like, you know what? This is actually not that bad for Anthropic. Anthropic gets to walk away. The Pentagon, the U.S. government, if they don't want to deal with them, they just don't deal with them. Everybody goes their separate ways. That seemed like a good resolution to a complicated and dragged on conflict, right? And then today, it seems like the Pentagon is still going to go after the designation, so designate them as a supply chain risk, which I believe kills the company, right? So LBF 5984, Anthropic is done as a company, but somebody will buy them. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's exactly what would happen in that situation. So yeah, they sort of get crippled. They can't go on their own. They can't IPO. They can't run on a lot of the infrastructure. And their bread and butter is the enterprise revenue. Now, if you think of yourself as a big banking enterprise or healthcare or one of those like critical sort of infrastructure pieces, and you want to introduce AI to your system, and you have two choices, right? They're roughly similar, but one is labeled a critical threat to national security, supply chain, whatever, right? You're not going to pick that one, right? So that would really get it blacklisted. Any company associated with Anthropic will become blacklisted as well. Synexius. Yes, I think that's true. Whether it's officially or not officially, that's exactly what's going to happen. And so, yeah, if they're able to get purchased by somebody else, I guess that would be one way they survive. But again, not as Anthropic. So to me, that seems this. To me, it's I don't know if I agree with that, right? Because again, if there was issues, if there was back and forth and problems, fine. Claw back their contract, kick them off the federal network, whatever. It's whatever. That makes sense to me. Coming up, sort of like going after them and just executing them. The question is why. You know what I mean? Like that seems, punitive, whatever. So I'm still hoping that that's, like somebody said, might be a negotiating tactic, or it might be an actual tactic to kind of like get them, cut them down to size and have them be purchased by an Apple or someone like that. J Harris 8939. SC designation is just military contracts, not all government contracts. CS being what? Supply chain. So is that true? I mean, I understand that might be technically true. I think most people are sort of aware and assuming that this is going to conflict with a lot of the infrastructure cloud contracts and a lot of the big tech companies. Like I understand you might be technically right, but I don't know if that's true in actuality, as in like, can you get that sort of designation and be completely unaffected in your relationships with large enterprises and companies like Google and AWS and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. By the way, please, people, post that in the comments. Like, do you think it's possible that you get that designation and it's just, there's a very clear line? You lose your government contracts or you use your military contracts and it affects your company in zero other ways outside of it? Like, it's a clean divide. I just don't see how. Right? I mean, we know that Microsoft and Google and all of them, right, they have a lot of government contracts, AWS, right, cloud contracts, Microsoft, right, recently. So there's this overlap between, kind of like the military, the government, and those things. And if Anthropic is relying on a lot of that infrastructure to continue to grow and train models and stuff like that, that's not good. Also, investors need to be able to, investors don't like regulatory uncertainty, right? And this company needs billions and billions of dollars poured into it. Any AI lab really needs billions and billions of dollars poured into it to continue to train models and continue staying competitive. So if the government paid to target on their back, I mean, it's hard to imagine a world where that doesn't affect them, right? So again, the person that said that, you might be technically right. I agree with that. Maybe that is strictly a military designation. Is it not going to affect anything else? Like, I wouldn't bet money on that. You know what I mean? Like, if I had to bet, like, will this cause other issues for Anthropic? I'd be like, yes, it would. Hattori Hanzo, they are terrorists and should be imprisoned. So you're talking about Anthropic? There is a petition going on to sign that's saying like, hey, don't designate them as such. Here's the thing. I mean, if it is just a clean cut and government thing where they could cut off the military contracts, again, it's like whatever side you're on, right? Whether you think Anthropic is overreaching or the government is overreaching, whatever you believe, if they just cut it and they end it with fines, contracts, and then Anthropic can't work for the federal government or Anthropic's technology can't be used in the federal in any federal agencies, that seems reasonable to me. I think most people would say like, okay, well, that sucks, but whatever. Like, it didn't work out, right? They had an argument, whatever. The shutting them down, I don't know, man. That's if that is if that is indeed what is happening. Could they move it to a different country? I don't think so, because they are really connected with Google now, I feel like. Running on TPUs. LBF 5984. No, it's not that he didn't say yes, sir. It's that he said we dictate U.S. policy, not the Pentagon. Yeah, here's the thing. Like, you're not wrong, but it is sort of, everybody uses this hyperbolic language. So like, yeah, okay, yes, you're right. Anthropic was trying to retain some control over how the technology was used. You're correct. And the Pentagon was like, that's absolutely inappropriate. And they needed them to just play ball and not have anything like that. So yes, I mean, you're not wrong, but there's nuance here. And I understand some people don't want to see that. Like, it's got to be completely black and white. And by the way, I'm also not saying that Anthropic played this right. I think there's a lot of missteps that they make. And I think there's a lot of mistakes that they make. And I'm not, protecting them or saying anything like that. But I also don't think that the U.S. government needs to take punitive actions against it. Because again, keep in mind, they didn't dictate anything, right? They didn't, there was no actions. They didn't try to shut anything down or anything like that. That's an important point to understand, right? So if they were asked to follow orders unquestioningly, and they said yes, but like there's just this one red line. You know what? And you got to give it to them for being honest, right? If you think about it, like if they said, hey, like I'm not willing to cross this line, you can call them a bad person for trying to dictate policy, but they openly said it, right? They said, no, this is what I'm unwilling to do. You know what I mean? That's a good thing. Saying where your line is that you're not willing to cross. You know, you can disagree with the line. You disagree with the fact that they should have that control, that they should be able to dictate. That's fine. But you got to give some credit for having, you know, like the balls to be like, you know what I mean? I mean, imagine sitting across from the Pentagon guy and just going, no, like I'm unwilling to do X, Y, and Z. Like you got to give him some credit for that at least. And you can disagree with him on everything else. Do I think that the movie Terminator was a prophecy? No, I think most of science fiction, interestingly, is like, we're realizing it was completely wrong in how they perceived AI because we just didn't understand it back then. Intelligence is somehow baked into the universe. I don't want to deep to dig, but basically we always thought we would engineer the digital brain or the artificial brain. So similar to how they've engineered, similar to how, you know, they've engineered like a rocket ship or a Formula One car or whatever. Whereas in reality, like we're growing it. So it's more like a fungus and we just have to create the perfect environment for that fungus to grow and then it will grow. That's one. And number two, I don't think anybody really truly fully grasped the exponential nature of how it could grow. The first person that really kind of in popular culture that talked about it, if you think about it, was, well, maybe not the first, but a great example was the blog Wait But Why, Tim Urban, right? So that idea is like, we all think that AI will pull into like the human intelligence level station. It will slowly come up to match our intelligence. And he's like, that's not going to happen. It's going to like blow past it and it'll be much smarter the next second. What missteps did you say in what missteps did they make? J Harris 8939. Great question. Let me so here's the thing. We might not know exactly, but here's what I would say. I don't imagine somebody like Satya Nadella or any of the CEOs from any of these companies finding themselves in this situation. Either because they would have avoided it or they would have played it better or whatever, right? Similar to how when Sam Altman was fired during that whole little coup at OpenAI, right? Because that was also EA related, right? So they ran the coup and they found themselves absolutely isolated. They're locked in this office. They're getting calls from DC or from wherever, from some attorney general, the same person that put away the crypto guy that went away. He was related to effective altruism somehow. Was it Bankman-Fried, right? So they conducted the coup and then they found themselves, completely. They managed to alienate all the employees. Because remember, all the employees were posting those little blue hearts. The attorney general is breathing down their neck. So they find themselves in situations that are really bad and there's no way out, right? So there's some breakdown of logic in terms of like, let me think this through, and they somehow find themselves in these, like when Dario is saying Bankman-Fried, thank you, when Dario's sitting across from Hegseth, talking about this stuff, like he already made all the like he's already in the losing condition. Like he needed to have made decisions before that didn't land him there, whether that was not working with the government or I don't know what, but by the time we're hearing about the situation, it's bad. Like he already has no options. He's already made a lot of people mad, similar to how I forget their names, but the people that the OpenAI coup, right? So by the time they found themselves in that office, 24 hours after firing Sam Altman, and they're getting calls from the attorney general, and the entire OpenAI staff is against them. Like they've already lost. They've already made all the foolish decisions that have lost the game for them, and it's just only a matter of time until it's official, right? By the time Dario's getting called to the Pentagon, he already lost the game. It's only a matter of time before it's official, right? So I don't know exactly what mistakes were made. But the point is, by the time we know what was happening, they were already made. He was already in that bad situation again. But at a top level, either if you're gonna get in bed with the government, then go all the way, or negotiate preemptively, or don't get a contract with them. Right? Those are sort of like the options. Being the first in there, getting embedded in there, and then facing off with them on grounds that you can't win. Like that's, you know what I mean? That's already like the losing condition. You can use Anthropic banned. No, it's not clickbait. It's not clickbait. He banned it. So Trump banned it from all federal agencies, right? And I say that in the video that I did. I say that within the first minute. So no, like you can't fit the entire story in the headline. So the headline captures kind of like what happened, and then you describe it. So Anthropic got banned, and in the first 1 minute, I give you the entirety of the explanation. Trump banned Anthropic from all federal agencies. And then also, this is the next kind of wave. That's that sort of designation of supply chain, which again is another type of ban that could really, really, really hurt Anthropic. So banned means banned from any U.S. company working with the U.S. government, banned from U.S. projects, and banned from IBM or Accenture or Palantir government. Yeah. So certainly they're banned with all the contractors. He seems like he has Asperger's seriously. Yeah, some of it. I hope you're not talking about me. I assume you mean Dario. I'll go with that assumption. Yeah, it's like he's brilliant. He's smart. But yeah, you could see him getting like worked up and like maybe just not thinking things through and rubbing people the wrong way. And in that military environment, right, where you expect people to be like yes sir or no sir, these fine distinctions or whatever might really tick people off. So again, that's what I mean is like the mistakes were made in the past and we're just seeing them like playing out. Hegseth is a moron, jarhead. So I don't know too much about the person. I have no idea who he is, or I think he made a post talking about it. So yeah, so with a lot of this stuff, like a lot of these people, they're not sort of like, they might be smart, they might be brilliant. There's a lot of things that they're great at. They're maybe not the negotiator types. They're not the operator. They're not a smooth operator. You know who's a smooth operator is Sam Altman, right? Because look what happens. Like less than 24 hours, like he's in there. He's got the contract, right? he's the one that's gonna not find himself in that situation, right? And a lot of these CEOs of these companies, right, or even like elected officials, they're just not gonna find themselves in this situation. Dario might be, I mean, honestly, part of it, he might be too honest. Do you know what I mean? Like he has a thought and he just says it, right? Like, hey, are you gonna play ball? And he's like, well, not unless you do this, right? And like everybody know, like, you think Sam Altman would say that? Um, Fisher Deck. Yes, these times are basically Asperger's versus fake alpha male. Touche. I mean, uh, I don't. That might not be wrong. That might be kind of accurate. It's just like oil and water, like that military strict binary yes no. I say jump, you say high, how high, versus like Dario's like, well, it's complicated. Let's really examine all the factors here. Like that just it doesn't go together well. Although, I mean, Elon does pretty well. I think. Um, or at least he doesn't have these critical communication failures. You know what I mean? Like Elon, he's probably got Asperger's, but he's one of the people that are like effective operators. I don't know what the difference is, but I mean, again, EA, when they took over OpenAI, they had everything and they fumbled it because of I don't know what. They just don't know how. I don't know what. Like there's some very smart people, but somehow they think in these weird ways where they find themselves in these horrible situations. That's exactly what happened here. Uh, Line Arc G, hello. First time catching a stream. Is this something you do often? First of all, thank you so much for being here. I do not do this often. I always say I should because I love it. I enjoy it. I really love it. I really, really do. It's so fun and kind of catching up with people and talking about it. It's a lot of fun. I don't know what it is. It's tough. Not tough, but it is draining. It is a lot. Like, because I mean, when you're making a video, I can kind of pause and stare out the window for 5 minutes and gather my thoughts and then whatever. And you just edit those pauses out. But here, it's super fun, but it's also like a little bit draining. And then if I'm constantly like running around, what I should do really is have a short live stream like every day or 4 times a week or something like that, where we just go over the news, where we just sit down and kind of go over the top level news. Because I do that every morning anyway. So let me know if you'd be interested in that. Like if the live stream was more often, but shorter. Because like going an hour and a half, just me just talking for an hour and a half is rough. If you're doing it every day, you know what I mean? Again, I don't know how Twitch streamers do it. That's insane to me. Because they do it like 8 hours, 10 hours, whatever. They're using something. I'm onto them. But yeah, if we do like a 10, 15, 20, 30 minute, whatever, like quick morning thing where we just go over the news, I might take over from, what's his name? Scott Adams had the simultaneous morning coffee sip. It's like, hey, everybody, let's drink our first, although I wake up super late. For most of you, it's probably later. I woke up not that long ago. Did Ice010, did you ever get back to me? So you said that something about how the wording was phrased, something about the person being in the next room hinted to Claude that he was Russian. I missed that part. So if you're still here, let me know. Because that's actually kind of interesting. Because then it's sort of, then the situation is a little bit different if it was a wording issue. You know what? Neo Cyber Savvy, Thank you so much. You're so smart. A weekly recap would probably be easier on you. So the story of my life, literally, is I've like I'm like min-maxing everything. It's 0 or 1, or 0 or 100. Like either I don't do it, or I like gotta go like crazy. And I'm like, I should do it every day, or like, oh, I'm not gonna do it ever. Yeah, so many times in my life, the right answer is just do it a little bit here and there, here and there. Like find the balanced approach. I don't know why my brain doesn't work like that. You're obviously right. Doing once a week recap would be the smart way of doing it. Thank you. Yes, and I should definitely do it. David A. B1F, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate you. So the designation forbids Anthropic from military associated work. It does not ban Anthropic from commercial contracts for other purposes that do not connect to the military operations. So my point is, if they get designated, and let's say what you said is 100% true officially on paper, like the investors that are pulling billions into Anthropic, they hate regulatory uncertainty. Are they going to have second thoughts when they can invest in OpenAI or something else? The people like Google and Amazon, like a lot of the infrastructure plays, are they going to be as like, yeah, sure, let's treat them just like we would all the other people without that designation, without the government's, wrath aimed at them. Yeah, like IPO. If they get a designation, does they want to do an IPO this year, early this year? Does this not affect that in any way, shape, or form? I would not bet money on that. Does that make sense? I'm not saying that you're wrong about what you're saying. I think you're right. I don't know what the laws are, but let's say you're right. I wouldn't bet that there wouldn't be, as the military says, collateral damage. Do you know what I mean? Like if they put, if the Trump and the Pentagon and everybody else, they say, this is a bad company, we hate this company, and they put that designation on them. Is that like neatly contained within the box? Or is there going to be collateral damage? I would bet money that there would be collateral damage. Even if there's no official sort of thing that causes it, it's, you know what I mean? Value drops. Yeah, okay, yeah. Like if it was a stock and somebody designated that and they lost a little bit of revenue, would the stock drop proportional to the loss of revenue, or people would just panic and dump it? People tend to be more cautious, right? If the government doesn't like them, like, would you put your life savings into Anthropic right now? Think about it that way, right? If you got a chance to put all the money that you have, make a big investment into Anthropic, versus 2 months ago, you'd think twice right now, wouldn't you? Because it's uncertain, right? So you wouldn't just bet all your money on it, even though it might be limited to just military contracts or defense contractors or whatever. Most people would be like, I'm not touching that, and I think most yeah. Ravel, yes, I would. So you would bet the same amount with the same confidence as you did 2 months ago? You know what I mean? Because, yeah, I hear you. It's still a good company, but man, look, no, most people, when there's regulatory uncertainty, they freak out. When there's uncertainty, people freak out in general. This causes uncertainty. It's as easy as that. But that's not saying Anthropic is bad, or bad things are going to, whatever. It's an issue. It's an issue that could have been avoided. But yeah, I mean, if like Apple or somebody picks up, if Apple or somebody picks them up, that would be kind of interesting. All right, so let me quickly look through some of the things that people have said. So Jason Crawford said, I just signed this. It's against the DOW designating Anthropic as a supply chain risk. Yeah, so to me, it's one of those things where me personally, I think that designating him as whatever isn't a good thing for anybody. Like, I know a lot of people are mad at Anthropic right now, and I understand some of those. I understand. Believe me, I get it. They've made some poor decisions. Do we want them, regulated out of existence? The more companies there are out there, the better, right? We have more choices. There's not a monopoly. They definitely seem to have figured something out that's very valuable, right? I mean, they're number one coding models. Some people disagree. I'll say Codex 5.3 or whatever it is better. But Claude, I mean, is definitely very, very good. It has been. So I don't know. Like, I don't know if Anthropic if it does end or isn't able to continue, producing, have the same resources to produce all the stuff they've been doing. Who is that good for? Are people mad at Anthropic? Yes. Surprisingly, and I'm like, you really see there's this shift in the last few months, and I think it started when they went after OpenClaw, CloudBot, whatever. I think people didn't like that. If you notice how every single lab, so DeepMind, OpenAI, and Anthropic, around the same time, all said, hey, the Chinese labs are distilling our models. Every one of those labs made that statement. But when Anthropic made it, the entirety of X/Twitter just landed on them and just completely railed against them, saying, oh, just like you stole this and that from us, etc., etc., etc. If, there's a number of people that work with them that have been coming out and kind of, so I'm not saying everybody, okay, so I guess I should say, yeah, not everybody. I'm saying more like the climate shifted. Whereas before, Anthropic was genuinely viewed with a lot of positivity. Now there's definitely so just to be clear, before the last few days, what was happening, right? There was a big split. I think people didn't like a number of things that they did with OpenClaw, etc. I don't know exactly what caused it, but there was like a different climate. I'm not saying everybody. So Fisher Deck, yes, that's my thoughts. I see nothing but praise aimed at Anthropic. So Theo GG, whatever his name is on Twitter, pretty big guy in the coding space, has been incredibly, in the last few weeks, incredibly negative against Anthropic, and saying that he's been saying that Anthropic isn't a good company for a while. Again, please understand what I'm saying. I'm not saying that everybody's against it or Anthropic is bad or whatever. I was surprised to see the waves of negativity aimed at Anthropic recently. If you want to see what I'm talking about, look at their tweet about the distillation attack. And you're going to see a lot of people that are, on X at least, sort of kind of in that AI space. People look to the opinions and stuff for the, very, very, very negative. I was surprised by how negative that backlash was. Even though OpenAI said the same thing a week ago and DeepMind said the same thing 2 weeks prior. So just please understand what I'm saying. I'm not saying that they're bad or whatever. I'm just saying that they've triggered some subsection of their fan base. Oh, I mean, okay, here's another perfect example. When they pulled Theo was very on their side for this government thing. Okay, that's interesting. So I didn't see that yet. So this was, like I said, this is before this government thing that I'm talking about. Like there was this wave shift before this. If you want to see exactly what I'm talking about, look at when they were talking about the distillation attack, and look at when they pulled the OAuth token so that you couldn't use it for OpenClaw. You couldn't use Claude Code token for OpenClaw. The reason a lot of people were ticked is because the people that were using that particular method to run OpenClaw were Anthropic super fans. Those were the people that loved Anthropic and used Anthropic and just loved it. And then one day Anthropic was like, yeah, okay, but you can't use it in this particular way, right? And so that was a very big backlash from those people that loved Anthropic. They were like, okay, so you're saying that you can dictate how we use this technology. Like it's just, you're going to be able to say, well, you can't use it like this or you can't use it like this. People were not happy about that. Again, for me, I have a lot of goodwill towards Anthropic. Please understand that. I don't agree with everything that they're doing. Believe me, I think Dario's. I mean, certainly there's obviously been some mistakes. Overall, I like Claude. I really enjoy how Dario thinks long term. I think his essays, Machines of Loving Grace, I think should be required reading. Very well thought out, very well presented. And there's a lot about Anthropic that I like. What's the guy's name? If please help me. The guy that made Claude Code, Boris Chorny, I think. Interviews with him are terrific. So that, I mean, what I'm saying is I have a lot of goodwill towards Anthropic. And by the way, I would just like encourage people not to get into this one or the other. Like we're always trying to be like, you have to be one side or the other. Like either like Anthropic 100% bad because they went against the U.S. government, or the government is bad, Anthropic is good. There's no angels and demons here. Do you know what I mean? Just complicated people trying to figure stuff out, and sometimes doing it effectively and sometimes not doing it effectively. I think there's reasonable stuff on both sides and foolish stuff on both sides. That's not a cop-out. That's once you start realizing how things are, that is very, very true. There was an ex-general from the Pentagon who was involved in the Project Maven, their connection with Google back in 2017 or whenever that was. And that was so they wanted Google to help to use their AI to help improve drone targeting. And when Google employees found out about it, there was revolts. A lot of them, some left, and basically Google had to cancel that contract. And that general that was on the receiving end of that, because he was in charge of that project. Yeah, Boris Chorny. He was saying that what Google and their employees did, he didn't like really support that because he thought it was a little bit too, like he was like, that's like, he doesn't have too much sympathy for that, but he does have sympathy for the Anthropic situation, right? So this is somebody that's kind of like on the inside of the Pentagon that's saying like, hey, there's a degree of, what's it called when it's not black and white. Wow, I'm blanking on the word, but like the point, there's nuance. That's the word. Sorry. There's nuance here. So I really think that if you think this is just, there's a bad side and a good side, that's missing. That's missing some portions of the story. That there is a nuance here. Okay. So let me take a look at, so Sam Altman this morning, or late last night rather, announces, so they've reached an agreement with Department of War to deploy our models in their classified network. In all our interactions, the DOW displayed a deep respect for safety and a desire to partner to achieve the best possible outcome. Two of our most important safety principles are prohibitions on domestic mass surveillance and human responsibility for the use of force, including for autonomous weapon systems. The DOW agrees with these principles, reflects them in law and policy, and put them into our agreement. Let's see. There's also, okay. And they are asking the DOW to offer these same terms to all AI companies, which in our opinion, we think everyone should be willing to accept. We have expressed our strong desire to see things de-escalate away from illegal and governmental actions and towards reasonable agreements. All right, let's see. Create the imaginable, not mad Anthropic over this Department of War thing, mad at them about OpenCloud. Well, this was specifically, this was before this whole thing happened. My point is that there was kind of a tides shift, like a climate, weather change, whatever you want to call it. Like how people perceived Anthropic was shifting in some pockets of the conversation prior to this. Quantum Marmalade. Or is it Marmalade? Thank you for the super chat. If you can't build it, you aren't smart enough to wield it. The Pentagon has proven historically that they are the equivalent of monkeys with guns. They don't know how how AI works or what it is. Interesting how, like, yeah, the government didn't build this technology, right? It was built, you know, in the very, I mean, Google kind of, I mean, a lot of people contribute to it, obviously. Transformers, which was a Google sort of invention, kicked off this most recent, it was a big part of kicking off this race. But it is interesting that the government can't replicate it. Somebody online was saying, oh, why can't they just like get the weights from Anthropic? You know what I mean? Like just copy the weights over or whatever. I don't know. Like, would that do anything? You still need the people. You still need the infrastructure. You need the smart people building it. It's not about just like the weights. It's about whatever Anthropic has cooking is obviously special because they're able to put out top of the line models at 1/10 of the sort of like the capital investments that the other companies have. Like they're much less funded than, I mean, think about how much money Google has, how much money Apple has. You know, how, you know, Apple tried building their intelligence. Meta has tried building their intelligence. There's nothing close to what Anthropic has with their tiny little whatever. Let's see. Quantum Marmalade, $5. Claude's refusals are what make him smart. Philosophy cannot be turned on and off at will. And they do tend to think deeply, Anthropic in general, tend to think deeply about, yeah, I guess philosophy, like that soul document that was kind of a secret before, and now what are they calling it? The Constitution doc for Claude. Create the imaginable. Thank you for agreeing with me. About what was I talking about? The nuance? Was that what's that referring to? Yes, the Anthropic are the bad guys. Let me actually do a little what is it? Q&A, a poll. I'm curious what everybody thinks. Engage with your audience. We're going to do a Q&A or a poll rather. So the question is like, look, the whole thing is complicated, but on the whole, do you more side with Anthropic or with the government? What's a good way of phrasing that question in such a way? Do you think there's a connection between the Iran attack and the Anthropic attack? So, I haven't seen. I'm not up on that, so I kind of know what's happening, but why would there be a connection? I guess that's what I'm missing, and I apologize if I missed something. I woke up this morning, and this is one of the first things that I did upon waking, so I might have missed some news. Is there a connection? Let's see. What's a good way of asking the question? So, because I'm not saying like who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. I don't think that exists here. Okay, I'm gonna say who is more right, I guess. So Anthropic and Pentagon. So I'm going to click start poll. So the question is like, who do you think is more right? Because I don't want it to reduce it to good guys, bad guys, whatever. But on the whole, which way do you lean more towards? Do you think, just from a moral perspective, ethics, morals, whatever you want to call it, Debugger says I side with neither. That's interesting. Maybe I should have put that as an option. Why Palantir sucks? Yeah, I'm curious. We haven't heard from Alex Karp. I'm wondering what his whole take on this is. Quantum Marmalade, thank you so much for your super tip. Claude 4.6 will be obsolete after 6 months. How will Pentagon force them to innovate? You can't force people to think. Remember Iron Man in the Cave? I do remember Iron Man in the Cave. That was a good movie. That might have been my favorite movie. They made too many superhero movies, but when they were just ramping up that whole franchise, Iron Man 1 was excellent. They really came out really well. So Claude 4.6 will be obsolete after 6 months. Interesting point. In part because, they found in Mongolia, I guess, the Chinese have been able to put together a center with some advanced NVIDIA chips, and they're cooking up a model, DeepSeek rather. DeepSeek specifically, and both Google, OpenAI, Anthropic all have said, hey, we're getting targeted with massive distillation attacks. So, massive distillation attacks from the best models in the world, plus this massive GPU cluster in, I guess, Mongolia, mountains of Mongolia or whatever. The timing suspicious. Yeah, okay, I get what you're saying. So it's just the timing. Okay, I don't know. Definitely something to think about. The timing is weird. Yes. It's also not weird, but I've noticed that some of these operations, very often, stuff like this, it gets done when the market closes on Friday. So a lot of these operations often happen over the weekend. Specifically, I think it is to not spook the stock market, right? So it's like as soon as like the final bell on Friday closes, some war or conflict or whatever starts. And oftentimes it's almost like they have to like close it by Monday morning or whatever. It's just interesting, right? That it's like some of these military operations are run based on when the stock market is open or not. It just kind of strange. Okay, so in our little poll, 75% of the people think that like Anthropic is more right. and the other people think that, you know, Pentagon or whatever, government, military, whatever, like who's more correct. And that's, you know, I think that's kind of like what I would have expected. Um, Here's the thing, yeah, from the military perspective. Again, so I think we all are scared of autonomous AIs and drones and killing machines and stuff like that. Like, right, there's nobody that's like, yay, this is awesome, Skynet to bring on. Like, no one's saying that. Everyone's worried. So this isn't like pro slash versus everybody. You have to have some fear, some respect, some awe of, you know, if these autonomous machines start killing people, get really good at it, like you have to be a little bit concerned, right? You have to understand how powerful that could be. From the perspective of, you know, like the Pentagon, when they get a contractor to provide some service or provide some product or whatever, you know, if they buy some cars, they don't expect the car manufacturer to be like, oh, but we want to control how these cars get used. Or if they buy some ammunition, people are like, well, we want to make sure we control how this ammunition gets used. Do you know what I mean? Like, when they're on the field conducting an operation where there's like life and death situations, they want to make sure there's zero chances of somebody else having, like, it's just an extra attack vector if somebody outside of the chain of command can affect in some way or disagree or second guess or whatever. So them not allowing that is reasonable. So is, you know, if you're somebody like Dario and you're genuinely concerned about what you're building, to be cautious about giving complete unfettered access to, like, if you take a second, you can understand that each side has their own reasons and they're not, you know, crazy. That's just my whole point in all of this. Like, there isn't like a side that's like unreasonable. I do think it's unreasonable to destroy Anthropic as a punitive measure. That seems a little bit unreasonable. If they go through with all of that, that would suck. Like, I think that's a little bit much. That's my personal opinion. Let's see. AI is literally autocomplete with a neural net. The Pentagon think it reasons. How can a sentence completer making life and death decisions? It's a semantic resonance machine with attractor basins. Failure modes are inevitable. Yeah, and I think both like the Pentagon side and Dario, you know, they said LLMs are not ready for like prime time war management stuff, meaning that like they can't make decisions. I think how they're used is, one, to just comb through tons of data to find out, pick out the nuggets of wisdom, and two, for simulations. So, you know, let's say there's some, like the example that Palantir gives is sometimes, like, let's say there's a weird Chinese armada of ships that appear somewhere in the vicinity of Taiwan or whatever, in force, right? Some human somewhere has to make a decision about how to handle this. And usually how do we do it? Well, we think through, like, oh, okay, what could happen? Also, like, oh, where do we have our troops? Where are the satellites pointed? You know what I mean? Like, there's this bunch of little decisions, and there has to be a flurry of activity in order to figure out what to do, right? Because you don't want to overstep and create a conflict where there's no reason for it. You also don't want to underreact, right? So you really need to think through, like, what's happening, figure out how to do it. And what LLMs can do is they can rapidly, because, yeah, like you said, I forget exactly what you said, but there is a bunch of sort of, stochastic different things that can spit out that are like likely or more or less probable, whatever. So it can rapidly run through a bunch of different situations and tell you, here are the top things, and then those are then given to the general or to the person making the decisions. They're like, here's what's happening. We thought through a million different scenarios, and here are some things to keep in mind, right? So at the end of the day, it's still the human making that decision. The LLM is more like a brainstorming companion because it's been proven time and time again that it's better at brainstorming than humans. Like, it's able to rapidly provide a bunch of different solutions. Some of them are going to be great, and maybe some of them not so great. But in those environments, that's the use for it. So I think a lot of people see the fact that it will go wrong. Like, if you ask it enough times, just due to how its nature, it will get things wrong. And some people think just because it gets things wrong every once in a while, that means it's useless. No, not at all. Humans get things wrong every once in a while. We're still useful. It's just a matter of like where to put that, where to apply it. Jean-Claude Van Damme's name came up, and I have no clue why. I must have missed something. Claude. Oh, Claude. Jean-Claude Van Damme. Yeah. Yeah, Pliny's been showing that a lot of the stuff can get hijacked. Uh, I've seen a few cases where some of the prompts go inside like a sandbox, so they sort of get checked for problematic issues in an environment where it can't hurt. So that might be a way to kind of like get rid of that sort of attack vectors. But yeah, that's an open problem as of right now. Like Pliny, and he's a nightmare for these AI labs, because he's just proving time and time again that no AI lab has anything that can protect from jailbreaks, because he breaks everything within usually like the first 24 hours. Uh, Lucifer. No, we are way past prediction models, bro. Well, so the two use case I gave is, one is prediction models, and two is like simulations more, and then the second one is just combing through vast amounts of data, right? Are there other use cases? LLMs aren't targeting stuff. You know what I mean? They're not. That's not what they're thing is. For targeting, you don't even need anything that complex. That's yeah. And I mean, the other thing is that I guess they were talking about is just like, again, in that situation where like a bunch of ships arrive somewhere, they might requisition satellites to get closer to it or whatever, point at that location. The other day I was outside, I was like taking the trash out or something. It was nighttime. I was bringing the trash in, and I just see this thing like floating across the sky like a point. And here at night, you can see like the International Space Station when it goes by. You can see it pretty clearly. It's like a little spot, and it's very different from planes and stuff like that. But you can kind of see that little spot moving across. And so I'm sitting there and I look up, and then there's this like thing that shoots across the sky, and then like another one and another one and another one and another one in like this perfect formation. Like it's just like they're all gliding across the sky. And then one of them, like I think like zoomed somewhere. Like I was just standing there going like, what am I seeing? I was like, I had no clue what I was. I've never seen anything like that in my life. Later I asked my AI assistant, like, what was that? And they were saying it's a oh, well, I'm curious, does anybody know what that thing was? So it was in Traveling Chad, yes, but what exactly? The real Josh Boo. Okay, okay, yeah. Okay. But do you know the specific name for it? Because it was like one after the other in very small, like every 10 seconds, it was like doom, doom. Like it was just like going across the night sky. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So people. Okay. So people know what it is. It's Starlink, and I guess the specific name for it, they call it a Starlink train. So what happens when a bunch of new satellites get launched until they slowly go to where they're supposed to be? Initially, they are all in this like one sort of yeah, no, Starlink, but specifically it was they call it Starlink train. So it's specifically it was just the cadence is what really threw me off because I've seen Starlink satellites before. Actually, at night you're able to see them, but it was just like one after the other, and it was just like this train of lights going across the sky. It was trippy. I guess I've heard about it, and maybe I even seen like a video of it, but seeing it with your own eyes randomly, it was a trip. How many of you have seen that in your like with your own eyes? Starling train, yeah. I watched what's that movie called or a show? Pluribus the day before. So that was what was in my mind. I was like, this is a takeover. We're all gonna be one mind, one brain. Anyways, I gotta get out of here. But thank you for everybody that joined me today. Not yet seen this in Texas. Okay, cool. Okay, so this is I'm probably like the last person to have seen it. Oh, okay. And today I think there's a weird constellation thing happening, isn't there? I think there's some sort of a planetary alignment later in the evening. Yeah, it's a trip. It's a trip seeing that stuff. Yeah, these lives were, it's so fun. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. And so hopefully this was useful, entertaining, funny, whatever. Um, and yes, I'm going to try to do more of these. And I think probably just, I should commit to once a week and then see if I can add a little bit more and a little bit more and just kind of like, I don't know why my brain doesn't work that way. 6 planets in the sky tonight. Yep, the 6 planet alignment is tonight. So if you're in an area where you can see it, if you've got a telescope, it's going to be pretty awesome, hopefully. Very cool. All right. Thank you all so much for being here. It's been a pleasure. Love you all. And until next time, see you. Bye. Claude Van Damme.